WADR. Promoting dialogue. It's made there in Dakar, 1 p.m. in Cotonou. Good afternoon and many thanks for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio Broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world on WADR.org. Welcome to Newslink. Here are the top stories. Ghana's Electoral Commission faces criticisms for late release of provisional voters register as opposition parties yet to access document.
Political parties are still unable to access the register, and this is hindering their ability to send it to their agents across the country.
Senegalese government sets up a commission to review oil and gas contracts. Anger among Nigerians as Chinese firm confiscates 3 Nigerian presidential aircrafts over management of an export processing zone.
The Chinese people ought to release our planes because on the doctrine of sovereign immunity, they have no right to attach presidential planes because they are not for the purpose of commercial transaction.
And police in Burkina Faso clamps down on a network of thieves specialized in the use of forgeries. Please stay tuned for details of these stories and more.
Here is Augustine Coley with Newslink.
Many thanks for joining our broadcast and welcome to our listeners in the Gambia, Ghana, Liberia and Sierra Leone. This edition begins in Ghana as the country's Electoral Commission (EC) released the provisional voters register on the eve of the voters exhibition exercise after intense pressure on the commission. The voters exhibition begins across the country from today, Tuesday, the 20th of August, to next Tuesday, 27th August 2024, with the aim of affording voters the opportunity to cross-check their names and voting centers. However, there have been concerns that only the major opposition party, the NDC, has access to the provisional voter register, aside from the governing New Patriotic Party, leaving other political parties questioning the fairness and transparency of the compiled register. WADR's Christopher Atichu has more.
The litmus test on the readiness of Ghana's Electoral Commission to carry out free, fair, credible and transparent elections in December has been brought into question after the Commission failed to meet the demand of various political parties to have the provisional voters register for assessment and corrections months after request. The Commission, however, with barely 24 hours to the voters exhibition exercise, made available the provisional voters register to some parties. This political think tank Election Watch Ghana believes is an indication that the EC officials are using the missing biometric voters registration kits to register people illegally onto the voters register, an action which has the potential to destroy the country's democracy. Here is the convener, Mark Ewusi Akon.
With less than 48 hours to the voter register exhibition, political parties are still unable to access the register, and this is hindering their ability to send it to their agents across the country. We have reasons to believe that the biometric voter registration, which is the BVR machines, are being used illegally to register individuals onto the system. Any attempt to release a compromised register, no matter how close the exhibition deadline, will be exposed by us.
But the Electoral Commission EC at a press conference rubbished these claims. Here's the Deputy Chair of the EC in charge of corporate services, Dr. Bosman Asare.
You know, this one can never be true. Anytime the Commission is undertaking a registration exercise, we do it with the political parties. So it's not possible. It cannot happen that the Commission will register people without the political parties.
However, the National Democratic Congress, the NDC, who initially vowed to block the voters' exhibition exercise, said they would draw the attention of the EC to any irregularities as they study the documents. Dr. Rashid Tanko Computer is Deputy Director of IT and Elections for the National Democratic Congress.
We are working as we speak now. We are sitting on the register. Our team of experts are on the register. Our IT team, we are looking at it. We are scrutinizing the register from up to bottom. If there is any problem, we'll point it out. We'll let the media know and we'll give it to them. Others should go in.
Christopher Aticho-Fight, that report still in Ghana and on the voter register exhibition exercise as well as the December 7 polls. The Election Security Task Force led by the Inspector General of Police, Dr. George Akufo-Dampé, has cautioned political parties against actions seeking to breach the country's peace. The task force says such actions will not be contained. Wadr Nadi Titi has the details.
Speaking during a visit to the Electoral Commission headquarters over the voter register exhibition exercise, which begins on Tuesday, August 20, the Inspector General of Police and Chairman of the Elections Task Force, Dr. George Akufo-Dampé, urged the public to patronize the exercise and assured of maximum security. The IGP warned political parties not to take the laws into their own hands when they have concerns.
All the issues, all the concerns that they may have in the course of this part of the process, they should ensure that we use due process of engagement of within the law to handle every situation. We will not allow any individual or group of individuals to do anything that affects the sanctity of the peace, security, law and order of this country.
Deputy Chairman of the EC, Dr. Bosman Asare, on his part indicated that the Commission has done everything possible to engender confidence in the public about the transparency of the process. Dr. Asare disclosed the EC is ready for the exhibition exercise.
As a Commission, we are committed to a very peaceful process. We are committed to a very credible process. We are committed to a very, very transparent process. As a result of that, all the necessary measures that must be put in place to ensure that as a country we witness another credible election. We have been able to do that.
During the 7-day exhibition, voters will be allowed to, among others, request for inclusion of omitted names, objection of names of unqualified voters on the register, correction of wrong spelling of names, and more. The provisional register will also enable all aspiring candidates to vet the register and, when necessary, challenge the eligibility of questionable voters on the register. For Wadr, Nadi Titi, Accra.
In Chad, the opposition is threatening protests over a new organic law on Parliament's composition and compensation for parliamentarians signed on August 16. The opposition is also against a July 4 ordinance that restructures administrative units, increasing departments from 95 to 120, sub-prefectures from 422 to 454, and communes from 365 to 500. They claimed this favors certain regions for electoral gains. The new law sets the future parliament at 188 members of parliament and 69 senators. Despite protests, it was adopted and signed by President Muhammad Idris Deby Itno. Opposition parties like the Union for the Refundation of Chad, URT, and Let's Transformators have called it unfair and demanded changes. The Political Actors Consultation Group urges demonstrations and a boycott of upcoming elections. Meanwhile, the government plans to proceed with the new administrative divisions, and elections are scheduled for November to December 2024.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Here in Senegal, the authorities have set up a commission of legal, tax and energy sector experts to review its oil and gas contracts. The commission is charged with the responsibility to work and rebalance the listed sectors in the national interest. This commission was announced by Senegalese Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko on the national television on Monday. Details with Oge Oberika.
The Senegalese Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko did not, however, share details on the audit or update on any renegotiation plans. He said they were committed to their promise to the Senegalese people to come back to these various agreements to re-examine and work to rebalance them, obviously in the national interest. Prime Minister Sonko added that the Commission will have sufficient resources to look into the contract and hire experts from abroad if necessary. However, he did not say how long the review would take. Recall President Bassirou Diomaye Faye, who defeated the ruling coalition candidate in a landslide victory in March, ordered an audit of the oil, gas and mining sectors after coming into office and vowed to renegotiate the terms of contract with foreign operators in the country if needed. The move comes soon after Senegal became an oil producer for the first time. Australia's Woodside Energy announced in June that its Sangoma oil and gas field had produced its first oil. Gas production is also due to begin by the end of the year at the Greater Tortue Amain GTA liquefied natural gas project operated by British Petroleum.
Oge Oberika with that report. Let's now take you to Burkina Faso in the Sahel, as the country's national police has disbanded a network of thugs specialized in the theft of devices and the use of forgeries in writing. They were arrested by the police station of the District Number 6 of the city of Ouagadougou. Imo Edit has more in the following report.
Information from the local national police said these individuals engage, among other things, in the theft and concealment of two-wheeled machines, as well as the forgery and use of forgery in writing in several neighborhoods of Ouagadougou, including the neighborhoods Bomugu, Kuritenga, Boassa, Sondogo, Jikofe, and in the municipality of Saba. The police added that these individuals operated through a unique procedure to them, adding that, and I quote, some members took care of the theft of motorcycles. One of them was responsible for modifying the serial numbers of the stolen vehicles, which were subsequently given to other individuals to be resold on the market, end of quote. The police also explained that once the sale of a motorcycle was recorded, another member in turn took charge of producing the certificates of entry into circulation for a sum ranging between 25 to 50,000 CFA francs. While the suspects prepare to appear before the court, they are likely to spend several months in prison as a way of clamping down on criminal networks like theirs if they are found guilty.
In more edit reporting there. Meanwhile, the Burkinabe army has also successfully destroyed a major terrorist base in Nasugu. The operation, conducted from August 13 to the 16th this year, resulted in the neutralization of several terrorists and the seizure of significant equipment. Security sources report that the terrorists were using tents with solar installations. The army says its vigilance allowed them to target and eliminate these threats, with about 20 terrorists neutralized in the operation. Efforts are ongoing to restore peace in the region. President Ibrahim Traoré has, in the meantime, implemented numerous measures over the years to strengthen the army's fight against terrorism. Away from Burkina Faso, Nigeria's former Minister of Justice and Attorney General Michael Aduaka has condemned the seizure of 3 presidential aircraft by Chinese firm Zhongshan Fusion Industrial Investment Limited. Aduaka stated that the planes are used solely for state operations, not commercial purposes, and thus enjoy sovereign immunity. Usma Umar tells us more.
The seizure of the planes resulted from a Paris court ruling in favor of Chinese firm over a revoked contract by the Ogun State in the southwest of Nigeria. But according to the former Minister of Justice and Attorney General of the Federation, Michael Aduaka, the Chinese firm erred by going after the presidential jets, which he said are not for commercial purposes. He cited the 2001 trade treaty between Nigeria and China, which guarantees investors' rights but also recognizes sovereign immunity for state assets like presidential planes.
The Chinese people ought to release our planes because on the doctrine of sovereign immunity, they have no right to attach presidential planes because they are not for the purpose of commercial transaction. Where I have a major quarrel with the Chinese people is that the sovereign immunity, even though after the convention, the New York conventions have been classified into 2. Absolute sovereign immunity, properties that belong to the state which the state uses for operation of state, not for commercial basis, are immune. They are considered sovereign immunity. For instance, military hardwares, presidential planes, because presidential planes are not used for the purpose for commercial purpose.
He also revealed that the Nigerian government was involved in the dispute due to the treaty and questioned whether the Ministry of Justice was consulted before signing the agreement. Aduaka also suggested that the Ogun State should have raised a counterclaim during the arbitration process, potentially preventing the seizure.
The treaty had 3 areas, 2 strong arbitration clauses in paragraph 8 and 9. The base venue we could have got was one of the paragraphs gave a right to court, and these people had attempted to go to court in Nigeria. If we were clever, we would have had a counterclaim. Even when they withdrew their action, they wouldn't have resorted to going back to arbitration. But there wasn't a counterclaim because you have alleged that they violated some of the terms of the contract.
Nigeria has meanwhile initiated legal action to recover the seized jets, accusing the Chinese firm of fraud. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, Usman Umar reporting from Abuja.
Still in Nigeria, about 27 coastal communities in Akwa Ibom State have been affected by a fresh oil spill, allegedly by Mobil producing Nigeria Unlimited offshore facility. The spill is said to have polluted the water bodies of the affected communities, killing fishes, fingerlines, and other aquatic animals and seeds food. You are listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Here is a reminder of our top stories. Ghana's Electoral Commission faces criticisms for late release of provisional voters register as opposition parties yet to access document. Senegalese government sets up a commission to review oil and gas contracts. Anger among Nigerians as Chinese firm confiscates 3 Nigerian presidential aircrafts over management of an export processing zone. Still ahead, ECOWAS Regional Center for Disease Surveillance and Control issues a warning about the increase in Mpox within the region. We do have the press review, guest interview, and sports news. Please stay with us.
Fresh and breaking news all the time. Hear it first as the news breaks, only on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Thanks for being with us. As a reminder, we're streaming live on YouTube at WADR and on Facebook, WADR English Service. The ECOWAS Regional Center for Disease Surveillance and Control has issued a warning about the increase in Mpox cases in the region. West Africa has so far recorded 44 cases. Since the beginning of 2024, the epidemic has already caused hundreds of deaths on the continent and thousands of cases have been reported. Chez has more in this report from WADR's Alpha Abubakar.
1 death has so far been recorded in West Africa since the start of 2024. The center reports, even though there have been a total of 59 recorded cases in the region. Nigeria remains the most affected West African country with 39 cases, followed by Côte d'Ivoire with 11 cases, Liberia with 5 cases, and Ghana with 4 cases. The significant increase in cases and deaths due to the disease at the continental level is particularly worrying for the ECOWAS Health Organization. The number of infected cases has risen by 160% and deaths by 19% compared to the same period in 2023. The center is therefore calling for urgent actions. Among the recommendations are public awareness, improved surveillance and health response, strengthen cross-border collaboration, and intensified training of West African health personnel. The ECOWAS health body urges countries in the sub-region to also intensify their surveillance and reporting efforts.
That was Alpha Abubakar's report, voiced by Eche Atisu.
This is the newspaper review. Stay abreast and find out what the top stories are in your country.
This is the newspaper review.
The newspaper review.
Let's head to the Liberian capital, Monrovia, and John Darlington Pogba for the press review.
For today's edition of Press Review, we begin with the Daily OSIWA newspaper. Stans urges President Bouaka to dismiss CSA director amid concerns of misconduct and threats to free expression. We see the photograph of CSA director, that's the Director General of the Civil Service Agency, Josiah Jokai, and civil society actor Molba Molu from Stan, Ambassador Tuna Commission's new Peace Corps volunteers. On the back page of the Daily OSIWA newspaper, Enfields Box engages a robust public health feature. The New Dawn newspaper is next. Call to dismiss CSA boss Jokai as stance alleges lawlessness and abuse of power. U.S. Ambassador recommits partnership meets with Defense Information Minister. On the back page of the New Dawn newspaper, quickly, CSA to restrict free speech. That's the Civil Service Agency of Liberia. The Inquirer newspaper is now our last stop for today's edition of Press Review. Mpox virus is not deadly, but what? Enfields boss allays fear. Quote E, bills alleged rapists. U.S. Ambassador Tuna embarks on diplomatic visit in Liberia. On the back page of the Daily Observer newspaper, CSA warns government workers. The Civil Service Agency has expressed a concern over what it perceives as growing trend of unbecoming conduct on the part of public servants. The behavior includes dishonesty, unethical practices, criminal activities, and offensive action which have been increasingly problematic. According to the Director General Josiah Joka, the CSA is troubled by the rise of bullying and abuse of disrespectful conduct on the part of some civil servants to their supervisors and their immediate bosses. He said that these actions are currently in the workplace as well as on social media and the mainstream media platform, raising alarm with the agency. On the back page of the Inquirer newspaper, Johnny Home Film Festival and Liberia Film Awards announces filmmaking mixer series. LDA raids Center Street Cemetery, arrest several. But as I would love to conclude today's edition of Press Review. But before we go, these are the newspapers we actually followed on today's edition. We followed the Daily Observer newspaper, the New Dawn newspaper, and the Inquirer newspaper was our last stop. On that note, thank you so much for following Press Review, and bye-bye.
Thanks to Darlington Pogba for the Press Review.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is a guest.
Our guest this afternoon is Dr. Asa Asante, a political scientist and director for European Studies at the University of Ghana. Dr. Asante speaks about the release of the Provisional Voters Register on the eve of the voters' exhibition exercise by Ghana's Electoral Commission after intense pressure on the Commission.
If the normal thing is to release that register to them, to the parties, far ahead of time, and it was not done, and it was done at the 11th hour, then obviously it constitutes a wrong or an aberration. And I'm saying that that can be right if the groups are prepared to iron out that difference and make sure that they get the right thing done. And for the Electoral Commission, if that is the issue that confronts the political parties, obviously you don't want to see a repeat of that. And that is the spirit with which you work in a democracy, consensus building. When you go wrong, admit you're wrong, and then you correct it and make a headway. It's not an issue that can never be, handled. It can be addressed, and it can be addressed head on.
There are also concerns, sir, that only the major opposition party, the NDC, has access to the provisional voter register, aside from the governing New Patriotic Party, leaving other political parties questioning the fairness and transparency of the compiled register. What do you make of this as well?
I'm not seized with that information, but if that is the case, that is if, then it's still an aberration, a wrong that needs to be dealt with. But I'm surprised that some of these things are not raised at IPAC, because that is the forum for all concerns or issues that confront one party or another. So I believe that the appropriate forum is that meet at IPAC, discuss these things, and then move on. But if that is the case, obviously it's an aberration, it's a no. And you don't want to countenance that.
Now, with all of these circumstances, if they continue like this and Ghanaians go to the polls to elect a new president, what do you think will characterize the electoral process?
Obviously, if this is the case, it will not be allowed to stand, I can assure you. Not only the political parties will raise their voices on that, but civil society and the general Ghanaian populace will not countenance at all. And of course, the EC cannot go ahead with such a wrong start to conduct any election. The right thing will obviously be done. Because in Ghana, when things of this nature happen and people are dissatisfied, they voice out. If it's not corrected, they quickly rush to the court to seek redress at the law court. So I know that at the end of the day, it cannot continue. It cannot continue. The parties are very strong. The opposition parties are very strong, and they know what they are in for. So they will not allow this thing to stand. In addition to this, civil society are extremely strong, and they will kick against such a process that will undermine the fortunes of the whole electoral process. I can assure you that.
Dr. Asa Asante is a political scientist and director for European Studies at the University of Ghana. And here is Sankule Janko with sports.
Hello out there, warm welcome and thank you for joining us. Nigerian National League side Barrow FC has announced the appointment of former head coach of Nigeria's Olympic Eagles, Salisu Yusufu. According to Soccer.net reports, the former Super Eagles assistant coach has been unveiled as the technical advisor of the club on a one-year contract with an appointment to extend the contract for another year. Meanwhile, this move significantly narrows the option for Super Eagles' local coaching role with the former Nasarawa United manager, as well as Samson Siasia on home-based coaching list to take over from Finidi George. According to reports, Finidi was appointed as head coach of the Super Eagles, and after less than 2 months in charge of the team, the former Ajax FC player resigned from his position. Many foreign coaches have been linked with the role, like Harvey Ronald, Steve McLaren, Eric Shelley, and home-based coach like Samson Siasia. Salisu and Augustine Egoven have been linked with the coaching role. With Yusuf now committed to the club, Samson Siasia remains the only viable candidate to lead the Super Eagles, intensifying the focus on his potential return to the national team set up following the end of his FIFA ban. Elsewhere, the start date for the 2024-25 Regional Football Association League season has been announced by the Ghana Football Association. All regional competitions, including Division 2 leagues, Division 3 leagues, and regional women's Division 1 and 2 leagues will start on or before October 27, 2024 at match venues across the country. The Calls League for both boys and girls for under 13, under 15 and under 17 age category will kick-start within the same period. This will be the second time running that all regional leagues will be kicking off simultaneously across the country. And that's it for sports. It's back to you.
We've come to the end of this edition of Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Mustafa Sek for the technical assistance. Do interact with us via our social media platforms, X formerly Twitter, Instagram at WADR News, and on Facebook, WADR English Service. I am Augustine Cully. Good afternoon.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.3 FM, Newmi FM 94.0,
Hilltop Radio 104.7 FM,
and Veritas Radio 102.9 in Banjul, the Gambia. We also appreciate our listeners in Liberia via Alternative Youth Radio 98.9 FM, Lofa County,
Radio Kagama 94.5 FM, Niba County, DCN Radio 91.3 FM, Riverside County, Wakat FM Radio, Banga, Liberia, Radio Baf FM 91.3 Sierra Leone.
For you listening via Radio Pad 95.1 Damango,